PYT Sports, everybody. Ben, JR, and Jason. Be sure to check out our Turks and Jerks videos posted online. Good picks for Turks of the Week and Jerks of the Week. By the way, just for the record, to switch sports, I think if we'd been able to go any sports for Turks and Jerks,
easy.
Good. Jonathan Papelbon. Spirited defense of Jonathan Papelbon on the Fox Sports, just a bit outside from C.J. Nitkowski. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Did you see that video?
I did not know.
John Papelbon strangled Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper because he didn't run out of pop-up. Bryce Harper, who plays, who's like an intense player, but he didn't run out the easiest pop-up in the history of the world. And guess what? The left fielder caught it. So he strangled him. Anyway, we're talking NFL and the coaches who might be on the hot seat. This is obviously something that will come up again and again. Jay, you have a logical pick. It was your jerk of the week.
Yeah, it was Joe Philbin. And he was on the hot seat before the season started. He was on the hot seat before the preseason started. Going to this team is 8-8 every year. I think you magically predicted that the Dolphins will always be 8-8 under Joe Philbin, and they'll either be 8-8 and always miss the playoffs or make the playoffs somehow, barring the rest of the division, and then, of course, lose in the opening round of the playoffs. So Joe Philbin doesn't know that Joe Philbin's going to be fired. And that's kind of the best reality show that you can watch in press conference style after every game, because as I mentioned in the Jerks clip earlier this week, that, again, I'm going to look at the tape and see what happened today.
Well, I mean,
I'm picking that apart.
I mean, I don't know what he's supposed to say. Of course he's got to look at the tape, and you see things differently in the tape than you see on the field. I mean, we have a better angle.
But it's the way he says it just makes it seem like I was taking a nap during the game.
Well, it looked like, that's a good point, because here's what it looked like. It looked like the Dolphins were taking a nap, and I had a bunch of second half action going on in that game, and I left before it was over, but that game was relevant to me until the final snap.
41-14.
Yeah, I was texting a friend, like, how great is wagering that it was 41-14, and I like pulled over to the side of the road to listen on the radio because I needed another Dolphin touchdown.
Because you can't drive and listen.
I had the Dolphins in the second half. So and they twice got down inside the 5-yard line, and then had some really peculiar play calling. But again, it didn't matter. The game was over. But but
isn't he Tom Coughlin's cousin?
But here's who
looks just like him.
The Dolphin broadcasters were really bothered.
Yeah.
And they kept trying to, I think, is Bob Greasy a Dolphin broadcaster? I think it was, because they might have a quarterback there now, but I mean, I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know. I picked up their broadcast, but he kept saying when I was there in the 70s and I'd check off, I'd vary my cadence and snap count, and I thought, well, you're probably Bob Greasy. And he kept saying, maybe we're going to get good. Maybe we'll figure it out. How do we know we're not going to win 8 straight games? But just even that little statement there was like, that's like what a kid says, right? And everybody who saw it, because they were not tackling, they were disgusted when Carlos Williams had that last touchdown, broke through for a 40-yard touchdown run when the Bills would have been totally content to run out the clock. They weren't tackling, and they weren't. But you look at their team now. You look at that and the weapons because that kid Rashard Matthews, who played well, caught a couple of touchdowns for him. Jarvis Landry dropped some passes, but seems like a player. Their number 1 pick, Devontae Parker, who they're working in, like they have plus Lamar Miller, plus Jordan Cameron. Like they should. This is a team where Tannehill has some weapons, and then they have this already an impressive front 7 last year. And then you add Sue, right?
And that's another problem, too, because that whole team seems genuinely surprised at who Ndamukong Suh is and his character and his personality.
I mean,
like, they seem like they've never seen this type of Sue before. We're going to take him out of the cold of Detroit, and we're going to bring him to the nice, sunny, warm Miami. And he's going to be a changed guy. He's exactly...
That's true. I guess they thought he was a mean guy, and it turned out he's a really good guy.
So, and I don't know, like, good guy or not, the worry for me, as always with this, is a guy with a peculiar character. And I don't know his work habits at all, right? But it's a guy, there's something wrong with him. I mean, there's definitely something wrong with him. He did it, he already did it, he pretended he didn't, somehow he avoided it with Alfred Morris. Look, when Sue steps on a guy's face, it's not an accident, ever. Right. Like, that's just it. He's lost any right to pretend that it's an accident. And they dump all this money, all this guaranteed money on him. And you think there wasn't some chance that guy was going to get his money and think, I don't know. Maybe he's the hardest worker in the world. I literally do not know that. I don't want to presume it. but he wouldn't be the first professional athlete to get a ton of money and then stop working hard. And we already know there's something wrong with him. Like, there are guys who you'd invest in. Like, here's a guy who has a weird, who's a weird dude, and something might be wrong with him. James Harrison, right? Mm-hmm. But I'd give James Harrison wouldn't take his money and stop working, right? Like, he's crazy, but he wouldn't take his money and stop working.
This maybe even leads to why Silva may be on the hot seat, is because you have all these other issues, and then it's not going to go to Ndamukong Suh. It's going to go to, well, who's this coach who can't handle all these great players and put something together finally? I mean, as you said, we watched a little bit of football yesterday together, and Tannehill was consecutive passes, 160. He had just passed Dan Marino by 1 for team record of all time. And I was like, damn, Tannehill hasn't thrown an interception in 160 attempts or something like that. And the next play.
Yeah, it was the Red Zone channel. It
wasn't even his fault. It was Landry's fault.
Landry dropped a lot of balls.
I mean, a slant pass in his hands, and then so popped up interception. And so things like that, where you go and you see that happen, that was probably an easy first down, but I asked for it during that. We wanted to see that stadium. I don't know what they call it now, Joe Robbie Stadium. They don't call it that anymore.
The Dolphins Stadium? Sun Life Stadium?
Whatever. We're not duty-bound as Americans to memorize the corporate names of stadiums.
It'll change in 5 years.
And also, I don't care. I didn't pay for it. Like, I don't care about Sun Life. Like, it's the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. You don't get to rename it, okay?
Hey, it's Oracle.
Just right. Thank you. So, I wanted them, because, there are no blackouts this year in the NFL, so home fans get to see their games even if they're not sold out. This is a one-year exception. They're going to see if it makes a difference. The Dolphins, the fans almost for years and years haven't gotten to see many games because they don't sell out to begin with.
And the ones that are there leave in the second
quarter. Fairly
quarter.
Apathetic fan base for a team that has been really among the least interesting teams in the NFL over the last 10 or 15 years. I mean, literally, the most interesting thing to happen to the Dolphins in the last 15 years is Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin. And that wasn't football.
Well, Ricky Williams quitting.
Ricky Williams was an interesting dude.
Yeah.
Ricky Williams, I loved Ricky Williams.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That guy was interesting.
But they're still in your relevant team section.
I wanted to see, I'm not sure anymore. They are because of the Miami Dolphins, because they went 17-0. They won back-to-back Super Bowls. They were the first dynasty in the modern era. Right. Or Packers and then the Dolphins. But I wanted to take a shot at that stadium because I was positive nobody was there. Like, I was going to look like a high school soccer game. There was just nobody was going to be there, and the people who were there weren't going to care. Here's another coach I think is in some jeopardy, and that's Jay Gruden in Washington. It's interesting, you made the Rams your jerk of the week, and they have their one win is over the Seahawks, which is a big win, but Washington's one win is over the Rams, and Miami's one win is over Washington. But Scott McLaughlin is the Washington's GM, and he's already got the clown show. He's already a part of it, even though he is a serious football mind. For the first time in some time, Dan Snyder appears to have given over the team to a football person, although it appeared with the handling of RG3 that ownership is still actively involved. So that's not going to work. And if this guy's a good guy, he left football for a while, and he's back, and I want him to be healthy and succeed, but he should go elsewhere. But his wife, tweeted incredibly disparaging things about ESPN host because she presumed that the ESPN host was having an affair with her husband. It's just, it was humiliating. Humiliating. Big Instagram post about that. So he's already become part of the dysfunction. That was part of the greatest 72 hours in Washington football history, in that it was the worst 72 hours. But McLaughlin didn't hire Gruden. Gruden predated him. And from the moment Jay Gruden got hired and had the wide eyes at the press conference, I thought, this guy's not ready to be an NFL head coach. And I see no sign of it yet. The results aren't really fair to put on him because they're not a coach in a melding of Tom Landry and Don Shula, and wouldn't succeed, and Chuck Noll wouldn't succeed with this team. But that said, they're terrible, they're inept, they don't have a future, and they got a GM. If they're committed to him, he's going to want to hire his own coach, and that coach is not going to be Jay Gruden. That's my guess.
I think we mentioned him earlier, but Jim Tomsula, high school coach.
Jim Tomsula.
From
high school coach, the janitor,
the thing is, and maybe even unfairly, not that he's going to get fired this season or anything, but as I even said his name, people are going to say, who? Because you don't know him yet. Yeah. The NFL is full of recycling the coaches that failed somewhere else, and it's like, let's give him another chance here because he's going to fail here 4 times before we can determine that he's no good. So after that, this guy gets his chance. But as you mentioned, Michael Schur, a huge 49ers fan, is like, it's great to be a 49er. And as soon as it settles in that it's not great to be a 49er fan, they're going to go, well, why? Who's cut down this offense? Who's kept Kaepernick from playing the way Kaepernick played that season that they looked great? So it all goes back up to the top. Yes, they had 18 guys retire at 25 for this team. But, I mean, and then
there was already huge problems, obviously, at the end of last year.
So it's not really going to be his fault. This is what happens with a lot of coaches that probably shouldn't be fired. It's probably not their fault. And the ones who it probably is their fault stay. That's probably what's going to happen.
You want to root for Jim Tomsula. This is a guy, he was so committed to coaching that he lived in his car for
in a van down by the river.
Yeah, for a long period of time. His wife backed him through all of this when she didn't have to, when he left a better paying job to try and make it as a coach. And he was the defensive line coach for a long time there in San Francisco and did a good job. He seems like, because he doesn't talk like a coach, there's a tendency to think that doesn't have head coaching in him. Man, do I want him to succeed. Really, really want him to succeed. It's a really good story. But I don't disagree with you that and it doesn't seem like he's in a position to succeed, although expectations have been lowered enormously. And if Kaepernick gets his act together, then maybe he'll get credit for that. But it doesn't. After Sunday, it didn't look like Kaepernick was getting his act together.
Quickly, before we wrap up, because we have to wrap up, there's two other. One, Chuck Pagano, who does seem more like he wants to get out of Indianapolis so much that he's not on the hot seat. And, of course, also Jeff Fisher, who continues to prove that he is a bad head coach in the NFL.
Yeah, Fisher still has that rep, though, but he's got to turn it around with Brad Sanford. Ryan Grigson is the GM there in Indianapolis, and there's clear friction between Pagano and Grigson, so it might not even be Pagano getting fired. It may be Pagano working a settlement out there so he can get out of that situation. A lot of people very unhappy with the manner in which that Colt roster has been handled. That is a team that looked like a 0-3 team. They won Sunday. The two-point conversion that the Titans ran was one of the greatest two-point conversion attempts I've ever seen. First of all, didn't they get it moved up to the one?
Yeah, they had a pass interference on the first.
Pass interference on the first one. They got it moved up.
That was a good run play, and then the second.
Yeah, so first mistake and that's Wisenhunt in Tennessee, right?
Wisenpunt. It is Wisenpunt.
Yeah, so Wisenhunt in Tennessee. So that, having it be at the one instead of the two, and that seemed to affect his decision making. Like, you run the play you want to run, and I'd let Marcus Mariota have the ball and move around with it. So they give the ball to the least athletic player on the team. And then the guy runs backwards because he made the right decision. He knew, I got to do something here. This is not working. I got to keep this play going. But our favorite moment was when that guy, number 45, looked to pitch the ball back to Mariota at about the 20.
Because apparently he also thought Mariota should have the ball.
Right? He was like, we got to do something. And, what's interesting, and we also love that 90 for the Colts, the lineman, the D lineman, he saw what was happening. He was like, oh, this guy wants to throw it back to Mariota. Like, he was paying attention. I like that. But if he'd gotten the ball back to Mariota, it would have been incredibly interesting because
he could have thrown it, right? Because it was all behind the line of scrimmage.
And there wouldn't have been an eligible man downfield because there's no field to be down. So you could have gotten it to Mariota, and he would have run around. And my hunch is they'd have scored. My hunch is they would have scored.
They find something.
But anyway, it wasn't open. He had no chance, and then he got hurt on the play. It was a catastrophe, but it was amusing to watch. I hope he's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound when there is serious friction between the GM and the coach, as appears to be the case with Pagano and Grigson, that almost certainly spells the end. So actually, if I were betting and I had to guarantee one coach gone after this season, I would say it's Pagano. What would save them, of course, they're 1-2. It's a bad division. Would be rallying to win that division. They don't even. By the way, they don't have to rally to win that division.
Leading.
Yeah, they're tied for first. Would be to win that division, but it's going to require more than winning that division. If they go 9-7 or 10-6 and win that division and get knocked out in the first round, then that's when you make a change. If they have the run that people thought they might have and get to the Super Bowl, then it's a different story. But right now, that does not look like a team in any way that can win the Super Bowl. But I will remember my pick of the jerk of the week, which is us. Calm down. Give them 6 games. Let's see what happens.